What is up, people? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Seattle noise rock outfit, Great Falls. The band's new album, Objects Without Pain, will be released on September 15th via Neurot Recordings. But for over a decade, vocalist, guitarist Damian Johnson and bassist Shane Melling, who also played together in the early 2000s Noisecore band Playing Enemy, and the experimental duo Hemingway, have honed their sludgy, overwhelmingly intense brand of heaviness, punctuated by delectably discordant riffs, terrifyingly low, thwacking bass lines, and mesmerizingly tight percussion, setting them apart from the murky sea of sludge metal and AmRep-inspired noise rock bands is their ability to paint a deeply, utterly human story through an all-out assault on the senses, an art the band has perfected on Objects Without Pain. This album is their fourth album and their Neurot Recordings debut, and also the first LP featuring drummer Nicholas Parks, who also plays with Gatheist and Bastard Feast, who joined the band prior to the release of their exhilarating, cacophonous 2023 EP Funny What Survives. Objects Without Pain takes us on a bleak, purgative journey through a separation, a snapshot of the turmoil and indecision that occurs after the initial realization of someone's misery and before the ultimate decision to end a decades-long partnership. Its 8 tracks explore the thoughts that come up when a person is staring down the barrel of blowing up their life. How did this happen? Is it too late for new life? Will the kid be okay? What will make me happier? Familiar torment or unknown freedom? Objects Without Pain was recorded at Studio Litho and mixed at Anti-Sleep by Scott Evans, who's worked with Kowloon Walled City, Yautja, Thrice and No Lights, and then mastered by Brad Boatwright at Audio Sage, who's worked with Obituary, Sun, 16, with art layout by Damian Johnson.
We love you, Brad.
Brad, you man. 8 tracks, 53-ish minutes in length, and an album unlikely to feature on your lovemaking playlist. Boys to Men still getting priority on that playlist for me anyway.
I feel sorry for your wife.
Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Thank you.
I mean,
thank you.
You pulled out of the bag there. I've been sitting on that joke since before we recorded.
That was
off the cuff.
The cuff there, Duncan.
Off the cuff.
So what do we think? This was a last week decision.
What a terrible idea, and this not an indication on the band at all.
Yeah.
Without going into details, like this September is horrible, right? September is like a wasteland of albums. If the wasteland was occupied by every fucking album we wanted to listen to, it is honestly just there's so much shit coming out. And you were like, I'm struggling here. There's a Brad album that's coming, and you know, like that's literally like Dave's Google algorithm selected the words Brad and Boatwright.
True.
And he's like, I don't know if she would do this, and whatever it was, she sent it to me like it was a single or something. And I listened to it, and I was about less than 2 minutes into it. I was like, we need to review this album. That was before realising it was 54 minutes long, right? And also how like mentally exhausted it was actually going to be. So so this got added late.
Yeah,
I do have a lot to say about it, and that is positive though. So
okay. I think firstly, I need to start with the production. I've got to start there.
Always got to start with the production.
I mentioned Brad already, but I fucking love the production on this. This is my jam. It is everything I want. It is grimy. It is corrosive. It is bleak as a motherfucker, and it just it hits you like a fucking bus.
If this was a scallop served up to Gordon Ramsay, he would say it's fucking raw.
Yes, he would. 100% he would.
Yeah, 100%.
Steve Evans and Brad Boatwright fucking nailed this.
Ooh.
Absolutely nailed this. They have captured a sound that not only fits the style of this perfectly, but you feel like you want to sanitize your hands when you're listening to it. Yeah. You know, it's just fucking. But it's also it's weird though. Like as filthy and you know grimy as it is, it's also one that sounds great through headphones. Like a good set of headphones. I stuck my headphones. I was like, "Fuck."
That's Seattle sound, man.
Oh,
what is the other Seattle band that requires you to listen through impeccable headphones to their music, Dave? Mountaineer. They're Seattle, are they not?
San Francisco.
Oh fuck! It's the same place. They both begin with an S and they're in America.
Close.
Right? Like Sacramento. All the same place. Anything begin with an S. It's out that side.
Same country.
Like Seattle, Sacramento. That's California. Technically a different state. It's a completely different state. They're not even. They're adjacent with hundreds of miles apart. I mean,
listen, you're preaching to the converted. I am completely directionless. You know me. I have no idea where I'm going or where anything is.
You'll drive the wrong way up a road and I'll love every second of the fear that it gives me. Like that West Coast sound. Let's just shove it all on the West Coast.
Okay, let's do that.
They've got that West Coast sound, Dave, that makes you want to buy better headphones.
This, as brutally honest as this is, thematically, this is awesome. Like you can feel every single bit of pain and emotion that went into this. Like,
yeah.
And I love an album that can convey that. It may be an album that you only want to listen to when the mood strikes because it's not an easy listen, but it's a powerful album that really leaves you feeling like you've been through it with them. Stylistically, if you like the kind of sludgy, angular kind of noise rock side of things, then there is a shitload here to enjoy on this album. I was picking up little bits of like Ken Mode, Khanate, even like I'd listened to the band, the guy's previous band, Playing Enemy. There's little hints of that in there as well. It's very discordant, quite very ugly sounding, quite unpredictable as well, which is kind of where I want to start because the first track kind of made me do a bit of a double take. Like it sounds like it's kind of building to something pretty crushing.
Yeah. And
then comes like these electronic drums and like whispered female vocals, and I was like, what is actually happening here? Was the single I heard a red herring? What is going on? But no.
No, did you to look this to another review, did you start turning the volume up a little bit?
About the 3-minute mark, things took a little turn, and the instrumentation starts to pick up, starts to build again. Only this time, after about a minute of like drums and filthy metallic bass, the riffs kick in.
Yeah.
And holy fuck, it's heavy as fuck. It's the chords are uneasy and dissonant, and the mood is dark as night. The vocals are just full of anguish, and that kind of almost kind of like nightmarish feeling just kind of kicks in, and it follows you throughout the album. But every track kind of attacks from a different angle. The riffs are always fairly kind of twisted, but the tempos and the rhythms are constantly changing. And I like the fact that they had a really good understanding of when to change it up. Trap feeding is fairly relentless for its entirety, but because it's short at like 3.5 minutes, they get away with that. Plus the end of the track has a really fucking awesome slowed down kind of discordant groove at the end. It made me think of like an ADHD version of Will Haven, if that makes sense.
Will Haven's on my it's once again on my 2023 bingo card.
Is it? Yeah. I got a lot of that on here. Yeah. There's a definite Will Haven type atmosphere all over this. Born as an Argument has that kind of the wave of menacing tones in the background. And at first I was like, I couldn't tell whether it was guitar made or if it was a synth on the track. Sometimes it's hard to tell with this kind of stuff, but it really makes this feel even more unnerving. There are synths on this though, definitely. They bring them in again on Old Words Worn Thin, and it sounds incredible. The choice of chords and the guitar tone reminded me of Yezu a little bit actually, which I'm all for. And I loved the kind of the inclusion of, again, the kind of spacey synths on Spill Into the Isle, which has got a real kind of like doomy vibe at times as well. I think like sonically this has a huge feel to it. And even though it has these kind of quiet moments, it's still a very intense listen. That, however, is only intensified even more when you read the lyrics that go with the album. So we're lucky enough to get a lyric sheet with the album as well, and that kind of added this whole other layer of additional kind of context and imagery that went with the album, and that for me kind of made the album even more kind of genuine. There's a lot of real kind of brutal honesty in the lyrics, but it's a really interesting read if you read the lyrics when you're listening to the album. It definitely made me appreciate it even more. It's not like this is not an everyday listen for me. Like, it's not something I'd be like, okay, I'm raring to go today, let's stick on that new album from Great Falls. But when the mood strikes, I really enjoyed this. I think there's a lot to like on this album. It can be a challenging listen at times, but I kind of enjoyed that as well at the same time. What about yourself? What do you think of this new one from Great Falls?
I never regretted a second of picking this.
Did you not?
No. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
I mean, it genuinely is exhausting, but it's everything I love about music in an album. You started with the production. It's difficult to not, like, gush over how fucking savage this sounds.
Yeah.
It's just this big, ugly, lumbering beast that just never gives up. There are few moments of any sunlight getting through this fucking dank, horrible grey cloud of an album. And I love that about it. It's a claustrophobic listen.
Yep.
It really doesn't give any space at all, and you feel enveloped as you're listening to it.
Yeah.
FYI, double checked while we were chatting. Mountaineer, San Francisco, which is, wait for it, 807 miles away from Seattle. Both right on the West Coast Bay, though.
Okay.
They're right on the bay, which is why I equate them together. You can see the same body of water.
Same place, yeah.
Practically in the same place.
Yep.
Apparently, it will take you 13 hours and 1 minute, very specific according to Google, to drive. It'll take 21 hours and 28 minutes to get a bus. If you were so inclined to walk, 274 hours. And if you have a bike, 78. So, there we are. So, completely different states that are... It's not even that they're neighbouring, there's a state that blocks them. So, yeah. With that out the way, we both look at the same body of water, so they are practically the same. So, Mountaineer and Great Falls, same band, pretty much. Same members.
Cool.
This album is so raw.
Yeah.
It's like biting your nail and accidentally hitting the quick, and then just playing with that bit for a wee while. It's like licking a fucking battery. And knowing that, like, when you lick it, it's going to, like, it's horrible. Then you're like, there's just something on the edge of just, like, to the point where it's so unpleasant you want to switch it off, but morbid curiosity is forcing you to listen on. It's what would happen if your whole family decided to walk in on you shagging, and then just decided to give you tips. You know, it's that awkward.
Right.
Like, no, like, try touching there, son. You know what I mean? You're like, this is not working for me. Or like, if someone found my diary that I wrote at 15 years old and then decided to read it out. with classic jazz in the background. It's uncomfortable to listen to.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me that felt like boiling water was being poured on my brain. It got inside me and just like stuck there. And I love albums that do that. I love being challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And not challenged because it's the most complicated thing ever written and I have to sit there with a fucking bit of paper and an abacus trying to work out what the time signature is. But something that genuinely challenged me as a listener to how far are you going to go with this before you're going to switch off. And I'll be honest with you, my first listen when it finished, and we talked about this kind of off air, when it finished, I was like, I genuinely don't know if I can go back through that. Like, I felt like kind of disgusted and just uncomfortable, and I gave myself a few days, and I was like, I picked this, so I need to fucking listen to it again. I've listened to it 3 times. Exactly 3 times. Not a second more than 3 times. It's 54 minutes in length. I think this is fucking great. Like I'm all in on this one. All in on this one. I think this is about as honest as music gets. Now, like you, unlike you, I don't do the whole press statement lyric sheet thing. But I got the impression that he wasn't happy in the lyrics. I don't know. There's just something come across to me that I love the technique. I come from a vocal background. I love vocalists that push themselves. Grady is a great example of this, who will push themselves to the point where their voice breaks, right? And it becomes this kind of frail instrument delivering this savage tone, and it's left in.
Yeah.
And he's all the way through this. Every song has this like huge roar or scream, and the voice is like, ah, all the way through it.
Yeah.
I fucking love that because that is real. It's not clean, it's not polished, it's not refined, it's not a third take. It's soul. It's someone bearing their entire being to you, and I don't need to know the lyrics to know that this is coming straight from a place that needs to come out. If it doesn't, it's a poison that will cause a cancer. It's incredible. Musically, this is just... It's like brick wall after brick wall after brick wall of fucking sludgy savagery. It just sounds huge. These huge monolithic guitars, this mastodon sounding bass that is just right there in your face all the way through it. And these fucking almost borderline chaotic drums that somehow, every time the drummer is playing something, I feel like he's about to just fucking go nuts. And like all it would take is someone just to give him a wee wink, and he would do it, but he's waiting for the wink.
Yeah.
So it feels like energized and volatile, like a crowd of people that are ready to riot but are waiting for the first person to throw the stone. It's all the way, you know what I mean? It's all the way through this, and that's the thing that kept bringing me back in. The tracks here feel like sometimes they have a structure, and sometimes they are just like poetry, free forming into to ideas and concepts and spaces that challenge the band to be even more uncomfortable. And I found it like I keep coming back. I found it like not even just engaging, but it was just I was in awe of it. It reminded me, you mentioned a few bands. The other band that kind of reminded me too, who are much more a kind of shorter form version of this, and I mentioned this on the first track we listened to, which I think was a single. There's a band called Bummer who are no longer around. They're about to release an album, but they're splitting up to do like a Valentine's project or some shit. Just do Bummer. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. But their album last year floored me. And it was just this big, ugly, snarly, 3-pieced fucking disgusting, like savage, like song for song for song. And it was like, imagine if that band was melancholic, kind of sad, and they wrote a sludge album. And that's what Great Falls are. It's like, it never really lets up at all.
No, it doesn't.
And when it appears to, it very quickly course corrects you. It slaps you in the face.
Mm.
I love that. It teases so much, but never really moves a huge amount away from what it's trying to deliver in its core sound.
Mm.
But it's full of technique, it's full of intensity, it's full of personality, and yeah, I think this is fucking great. This to me was like a home run, and it goes to show, like, we obviously joke a lot about, and we're very serious for most of the time about Brad being a guy that bands clearly seek out because they know he can put the rub on it. But I also think that there's a quality control in there that Brad seems to know the bands to work with really, really well. And this is the prime example of this. This is... It reminds me so much. You mentioned Will Haven. It reminds me so much of Will Haven. Doesn't sound like Will Haven.
No.
Or that new Will Haven album doesn't sound like this.
No.
But there are elements here that I'm like, oh, that's fucking 2 steps away from Carpe Diem, or you know, this could be on 7 if it wanted to.
Yeah.
So it's like everything on this reminds me of things, but isn't Great Falls. Great Falls have their sound locked in. Their album artwork, as well as a last kind of closing statement here, is the sort of thing that I see when I do dream, which isn't often, and I have nightmares. It's like that picture that always appears online where they're like, did you ever read about the Russian sleep experiment from 1943? And you see like some emaciated fucking goblin in the corner, which is a fake picture, but like to me that's in there now. So I'm like that. I don't sleep a lot. I'm going to become that goblin. And then I look at this. It's like what would happen if someone decided to like deeply disturb an entire generation at like Tape Face. It's, you know what I mean? It's just. It fits the album perfectly, like Ace Ventura would say, like a glove. It's like spot on. It just matches it.
Yeah.
This is an album that you could, if you are uneducated, pass over as being a one-trick pony. This album delivers as much feeling as the debut Glassjaw album does for me. Like, see, when you listen to that, and like, I don't need someone to tell me he went through a horrible breakup before recording the album. It is fucking evident on every song. You don't need to tell me that there's something going on in the background here that, as a vocalist and as a band, they need to get out. It is on every second of every single track, and they've captured it perfectly. I think this is absolutely ugly and awesome, like myself.
You're not awesome. Scores for
Oh, all of a sudden all those old jokes I was starting to feel a wee bit guilty of doing tonight are on fucking point.
Scores for this new album from Great Falls. This is a delightful ear smashing of an album. It is brilliantly produced. Like, production just is awesome from start to finish. When I was listening to it throughout the week, I was probably sitting a 4 out of 5. After I read the lyrics, that went up another step. It just kind of gave me so much more feeling from the album when I kind of read through it. And you were talking about kind of poetry early on, that the lyrics, there are parts of it like that are quite poetic as well. So I would highly recommend, if you can, read the lyrics while you're listening to the album. It does add so much to the kind of layers of it and the context. I'm a 4.5 out of 5 on this one. Really enjoyed it. What about yourself? What say you?
Also a 4.5. I didn't even need to debate that. I was like locked in after the end of the first listen when I felt uncomfortable and didn't want to revisit it. This
4.
album
5.
I literally was like 4.5. Please don't make me listen to that again. And I'm glad I went back to it. This is not an album, I'll be honest, this is not an album I'm going to return to a huge amount this year.
Yeah.
I will return to it. I know I will. I'll return to it towards the end of the year just to see if it it makes a dent on that top 20.
Hmm.
Because there is a spot somewhere in there for an album like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 4.5 for me.
Nice. So Great Falls and Objects Without Pain. It's out on the 15th of September.
Get the date right, Dave.
Sorry.
You had one job.
Links below. Just click the link. Click the link below. Link
easy.
to their Bandcamp, to the Facebook page, all that sort of stuff. Check it out. Let us know what you think. Have a little listen. There's a couple of singles out already. Drop your comments, your thoughts in once you've heard it. Happy to hear them. That is our review. Thank you for checking out. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.